I'd be remiss if I wasn't asking this question because some people might be thinking this. How can somebody who loves his children so much drive his kids in the car drunk? How does that happen?
I was mentally ill. I think alcoholism is a three-part disease, or it's physical. So I was physically addicted to alcohol. I was mentally ill, and I'll go through some of the thought processes that in a daily basis that will demonstrate that. And spiritually, I was bereft, and I didn't understand. People used to talk about this when I first went to AA. They talk about a spiritual existence, and I didn't understand it at all. And I was just bereft spiritually. So yeah, not only did I drink drive with the kids, I did it with malice aforethought because Karen knew that I would never drink drive with the kids. So I was driving with the kids to prove that I hadn't been drinking because she knew I would never put the kids in danger. So that's even worse. Anyway, so thankfully she stopped me driving with the kids, and thankfully nothing, I didn't kill them, anyone else, or myself. I wasn't so bothered about myself, to be honest. By the end, I did realize that actually everyone's life would be a lot easier if I just didn't wake up. But I didn't have the desire or the courage to kill myself. But yeah, I mean, life was pretty dire at the end. I mean, so my my daily routine: get up, drink between a bottle and a half of wine, cycle to work because Karen had sort of stopped me driving. Really, she didn't think she did. She was unaware I was drinking in the morning. Actually, I have to say, and I dump a lot of bottles to hide the evidence on the way into work. And there are bushes in our village that still jingle in the wind. Bottles on the way to work all over the place because you can't just put them in a bin because someone will notice if you put them in a bin. Anyway, so I go to work. Sometimes I'd top up at lunchtime, sometimes I wouldn't, and then I'd cycle back and I'd cycle to Tesco's and I'd buy 2 cans of wine, um, and some cheese or some batteries. Because you can't just buy 2 cans of wine because everyone know you're an alcoholic. And I'd go to a different checkout person, not that they care, and I'd put my 2 cans of wine and my cheese or my batteries down, and I'd have a conversation with an uninterested checkout girl. So yeah, I've got to buy these 2 cans of wine because my wife's making sauce for and they don't care, but you have to act like you're not an alcoholic. So I down one of the cans in the car park and one.
Are you trying to convince yourself? Are you trying to when you talk to a tech old girl or boy? Are you trying to tell yourself?
Chaplin once said, if you want to play someone who's drunk, then act sober because that's what drunk people do. And so you spend your life acting. Your whole life is a lie. You act sober. You act caring. And all through my life, I've been looking back. I didn't really, I don't think, experience emotions until I stopped drinking. I knew how to react emotionally to get what I wanted. So I could do remorse, I could do happy, I could do sad, and it was all there was always a motive behind it. And then again, not conscious. Just looking back, I think, oh, yeah, as a teenager, I was really moody, and used to try and get sympathy from girls and be upset, And I'd go out with someone, be horrible to them because I was bored. They'd bin me, and then I'd be like, oh, I've been binned, I can't believe it, and so it was all manipulative behaviour. So again, I don't know whether it's trying to convince himself. Probably is some of that, but convincing everyone else. A friend of mine, he used to do the same thing. He said his wife came to visit him. He's working in Brighton, and she went to the fridge, and it was full of cheese, and he doesn't eat cheese because he said every time he bought alcohol, you have to buy cheese, and so it's completely nothing else in there, just cheese. And she's looking at him like he's a complete nutter, which obviously he was. Then I'd come home and I'd say to Karen, because she'd been at home with the kids and they were young and it's tiring. I said, I'll take them to Tesco's, you have a bath or whatever. So I'd take the kids to Tesco's, drive there, um, buy whatever we were going to have for tea, buy 6 or 7 bottles of wine, and 2 cans as well. And then sometimes I'd get the checkout and I'd pay for the shopping first and the wine separately, and that really winds me up when people do that in front of me now. But so and that if I did that, I'd leave the receipt out because Karen would check the receipt to show that I haven't bought any wine. I would drink a can of wine in the car park and a can of wine halfway home, and then I'd drive to the side of the house. I'd get out and I'd unload the bottles to the back of the kitchen door. I'd then drive around the front, unload the shopping. Very obviously, no drink here. And then Karen would go and bath the kids, and I'd get the wine in the back, and then I'd take 2 hours to cook chicken and mashed potato or something like that, and think that I'd got away with drinking and um, and Karen wouldn't know. I used to live on Olber soil, so I'd coat myself in Olber soil because that's the only thing you can that hides the smell. People say, "Oh, if you drink vodka, you can't smell it." That's rubbish. You can smell it because it just sweats out of you. So I lived on airwaves chewing gum and and Olber soil to hide the smell. So that was my kind of daily routine really, and it was worse at weekends. And then I think it came to a head in 2001. uh, my dad died, and I got a phone call in the middle of the night. It was my sister-in-law, and she said, "Ever so sorry to tell you, your dad's died." And I love my dad, and I was really close to him. And I was in shock for a microsecond, and then my next thought was, "Fucking great! I can drink on this for about 3 weeks. I reckon I can drink what I like for 3 weeks." And that's a horrible thing to say. So I immediately said, "Oh, I've got to go to Birmingham." So I went to Birmingham, left the kids. Karen was like, "Well, am I not coming?" No, 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 I've got stuff to sort out. And I just wanted to drink by myself. So I went there, then came back and then took them there. Karen said my drinking got worse after my dad died. I don't think it did. I think I just stopped hiding it as much. And it sort of, now chronologically, my chronology is a bit, um, I, I wouldn't say I was in blackout, but I'm not quite clear exactly what happened. Anyway, Karen had had enough, and she'd been going to a group called Al-Anon, which is an amazing group. It's a counselling group for people involved in a relationship with someone who is like me, who is drinking too much and making their life.
Were you aware she was around there?
Yeah, she used to go, and I got so fucking annoyed. How dare she go and talk about my problem, which, by the way, I haven't got. And of course, she wasn't talking about my problems. She was talking about her problems in living with me. And mental illness will affect. Alcoholism. They say an alcoholic will affect the lives of 10 people around him deeply, and I certainly did that. At work, it was either party or funeral kind of atmosphere, and my mood swings were unbelievable. I don't know how it must have been awful to work with. I stopped caring really. I just didn't care. People would come in with toothache or whatever, and I'm like, gosh, you had my life, you wouldn't be fucking income to And I'm supposed to be in a caring profession, and I didn't care. Anyway, Karen through AA, through Al-Anon, kind of she gave me an ultimatum, and she said, "You've got 2 weeks to start doing something about this." And she came to see me at work, and I was pissed. And she sent me home, and she phoned my boss and told him that she'd sent me home because I was pissed. I was really fucking annoyed about that as well. And he was wonderful about it. He had a lot more faith in me than I did, to be fair. But that was the point. I went home and I was thinking, God, this is great. I can drink all day if I don't work. And she came home. She gave me the ultimatum. She said, "You've got 2 weeks to start doing something about this, or you've got to go. I can't have you around the kids." And she meant it. And she'd been to Al-Anon, and they said, "You've got to give an ultimatum. If you give an ultimatum, you have to mean it. You can't keep giving ultimatums." So she said, "You've got 2 weeks to do something about it, or you're out." And I don't particularly remember getting it, but I remember anyway. The next morning, I planned not to go to work. I said, "No, I'm too embarrassed to go to work because blah blah blah." And she said, "No, you've got to go." And because I'd already planned, I was going to spend the day. I was going to drink all morning and then sober up in the afternoon and pretend I hadn't drunk. And I think that was I was at the edge of a cliff then. If I'd done that, I don't think I'd have gone back to work. So she said, "No, you've got to go to work." So I didn't drink that day, and I went to work. And then I began withdrawal from alcohol, which is physically and mentally, but by far the hardest thing I've ever done. Because when I stopped drinking, I had been shit faced for 6 months, 24 hours a day, just existing, not living. Just the only thing I cared about was where how, and it's people say it must be great fun to be pissed for 6. It's not. It's so stressful because you have to work out where you can hide your drinks. You have to
It's an operation, isn't it? It's an operation when you're
yeah. So you have to hide them. You have to wake up in the morning, try and remember where you've hidden them. And I used to wake up in the morning, and the first thing I do is have a look around and see if I'm in bed with Karen or if I'm in the spare room. If I'm in the spare room, I have to work out what I've done that's made me in the spare room and how I can apologize for it without letting on that I don't know what I've done. Because I can't admit that I don't know what I've done because I'm pretending I only had 2 glasses of wine or wasn't drunk and I was just tired actually. And I can remember I stormed off to the spare room once, and we'd had this argument and I'd got all these reasons why I was right, and I wrote them down. And I woke because I knew I wasn't going to remember in the morning. I woke up, and there was just this pile of gibberish I was looking at. Like, what on earth are you talking about? Because when you're an alcoholic, you have all these imagined slights. So you think people are after you, you're paranoid, you're so you're hypersensitive to everything. You're looking for an argument. Um, so I stopped drinking, and I went through 10 days of 10 days to 2 weeks of just physical, the most uncomfortable 2 weeks of my life. My resting pulse rate was 180. You can feel these ectopic beats all the time. So you feel like, and it is, doctors say it is dangerous to stop drinking, and it is, but it's not as dangerous as carrying on drinking. And of course, the problem with people like me is you can't really cut down because the only choice I have is not to take the first drink. If I take the first drink, the 12th drink is inevitable. I can choose not to take the first drink, and that's all I can do on a daily basis. Once I've taken the first drink, then I'm gone. So yeah, resting pulse rate 180, um, sweating profusely, no chance of sleeping. Although I guess I must have slept, but it's like being plugged into the mains. Hypersensitive hearing, um, banging headache, and all the time there's a little devil on you thinking, just I can make this go away. Have a drink. And I kept busy really. I went to work. I didn't drink, and it's a mirror. I don't know. Obviously, it was to do with Karen and the kids and wanting to do that. And my dad was involved in it a little while, and I didn't want to drink. I did want to drink. I wanted to drink desperately, but I didn't, and I stopped. And after about 2 weeks, I started to feel more human again. And then after about 3 weeks, I realised I'd lost about a stone and a half in 2 weeks because the amount of calories you're getting from the amount that I was drinking was immense. So I started to feel kind of physically the best I'd felt because I could feel my liver for 2 years. Everything hurt. In the morning, you get up and I have to have a drink, but I'm throwing up the first two or three mouthfuls. So you have to fight to keep it down because you need to have it to function. But you're being sick because of it. So waking up in the morning without a hangover and feeling great, and that's when I realised I hadn't slept for 2 years. Was because suddenly I was sleeping and it was fucking wonderful. So at that point I still wanted to drink all the time, and Karen made me go to AA. And as I said, my plan was to go there about 6 weeks and then come back and say, no, they say I'm a functioning alcoholic. You just need to nag a little bit less because obviously it was all Karen's fault, and let me get on with it and I'll be fine. But I went and a series of miracles happened really. The first was I walked into the room, um, and two of my patients were in there and I didn't turn around and leave. I don't know why, because I saw them and I thought, well, do you know what? Fuck it. They've seen me walk in. They're going to see me walk out. It's not like they're not going to know what, no one goes to an AA meeting by accident. So I walked in and I sat there for the first 6 weeks. Didn't really say anything. But I loved it. I was blown away by these people being really honest. I thought someone had been following me. They're all telling my story, but with just different geography. I thought they're making this up. It's really, but I loved the stories. I loved the honesty, and I quite enjoyed going. And I didn't have any problem actually saying my name's Simon and I'm an alcoholic because I've been lying the whole of my life. So I didn't really believe it, but I said it just to fit in because that was my whole life of fitting in places. Uh, anyway, I sort of stopped for about 3 months, and then I knew I was going to drink again. But I'd said to Karen, if I drink again, I'll just go to a hotel somewhere. I won't drink drive with the kids. I won't nothing. Nothing I did before I'll do. I'll just occasionally perhaps have one. And I chose the worst time. Karen went away on a sister's hen do, and I ended up driving. We had to go to a funeral in St Helens. I drove back to Birmingham. The kids were with my mum. I picked the kids up, and my mum came back to stay with me. And my mum didn't know any of this at the time. I hadn't told her. So in my head, I said, right, if we get back to Lowestoft by 9 o'clock, I'll have a drink with my mum, and that'll be fine. Anyway, traffic was terrible. We got back at midnight, and I'd moved the goalposts by then, and so I had a bottle of wine when I got back. But woke up the next day, was fine, went to work, no problem. And then in the program they talk about handing things over to a higher power. So Karen's mum had obviously knew all about this because Karen had been talking to her about it. I said, right, if I'll invite Dorothy for tea with my mum. If she comes, I won't drink. If she doesn't come, I will drink with my mum. And she didn't come because she fucking hated me. But at that point, the amount of stuff I'd put her daughter through. So I had a drink with mum, but no, nothing unbelievable. A couple of bottles of wine between us. I woke up the next morning, shit faced. I have no idea the thought process that made me want to drink in the morning. And Karen phoned me up, and I'd only had a sip of wine when she phoned up, and she said hello, and I only said hello, and I wasn't slurring. She went, "You've been drinking." She's like a witch. So I completely ruined her stag do, or her hen do with her sister because she was worried about what I was doing. I ended up drink driving with the kids again. Everything I said I wouldn't do, I did, and by the end, and I was as bad. I drank 6 bottles of wine that Saturday, so within 2 days, I was as bad as I'd been at the end. So I stopped again and had a little bit of a withdrawal, but nothing like the previous one. And I went back to AA with a sort of fresh. But I kind of knew anyway that I was, but I thought, okay, I better do something about this. And then so I engaged in the program a bit more, the program of recovery, and because it's not. And what I now realise is that I didn't have a drink problem. I had a me problem that I tried to control by drinking. I tried to cope with being me by drinking heavily. And then I lost control of that drinking. So you go in there and you stop drinking, and you have to learn how to be you, and you have to learn how to deal with that. And so they give you a toolbox, and the program is part of that on how to deal with life. Because if you don't change the person that comes into the rooms, that person will take you out. Because my disease of alcoholism is out
Say
in
that
the
again,
corridor.
please. So that was really you brushed past that. Can you say that again? That was really powerful. If you don't change the person that comes into the room,
Yeah. So if you don't change the person that comes into the room, that person will take you back out again. And people say to me, "What I still
life isn't. That's not just drinking.
yeah."
That's everything. That's everything we go through.
I think Muhammad Ali said, if you're the same person you are at 50 as you were at 20, then you've wasted 30 years of your life. So life is about learning, and so with the help of the wonderful people in AA, I've learned how to. Well, sorry, I am still learning because I can still be an arsehole. It doesn't like when I sulk, it only lasts for about 5 minutes these days. It used to last for 4 days. And So yeah, some of the mad thoughts. So after 6 months in the rooms again, I realised I was totally fucking mental, and I had to do something about that. So I engaged more thoroughly in the program, and the program is mostly it's about being honest with yourself. So if I go,
It must be really hard to do at that point in your life when you're that low. It must be really hard to look in the mirror and say. You mentioned like, did you like yourself back then?
no, no, really. Well, it's hard to say because I've always loved myself. Really, I've always thought I'm a bit special. But no, at that point, I didn't. And looking back now, it's like looking at someone else. So I tell these stories with a certain amount of detachment because I'm not sure I believe that it was me. And whether that's something in my mind that's changed, I look back and it is a different person. And I can't believe the stuff I did. I can't believe the danger I put my kids in. I can't believe the danger I put everyone else in. I can't believe how how sensitive I was, how I used to get upset by the most stupid things. Like so, if I if I walked into a room and two people who I don't even know particularly are having a discussion about something, and I disagreed with something they were saying, I would have to put them right. I would have to tell them what I think, why they were wrong, and why I'm better than them. Now I've realised it's none of my fucking business. So if I hear the other day I was in Bannatyne's just getting changed, and there were two people who were training for a marathon. They'd never run a marathon before, and they were talking about running a marathon and giving each other advice, and they were both talking bollocks. And I'm literally almost sitting on my hands trying not to get involved in their conversation because the only reason I want to get involved is so I can say, oh, well, by the way, I've done 38 marathons, blah blah blah, and all this, and I'm really good, and you should respect my opinion. And it's really got nothing to do with me. And they're both fit, and they'll both learn. They'll be fine. But I still want to. I just now know who owns the problem, not me. It's nothing to do with me. Is it affecting me? If they go and run a marathon with the training they're talking about, they're just going to have a bad day. They're still going to finish. I'm sure they are.